Hello, everyone. It's Frank, and today we're tackling the Hazmat endorsement test for Texas. This endorsement is critical for anyone transporting hazardous materials, ensuring public safety and environmental protection. Let's get started with these important questions. What is the fundamental purpose of hazardous materials regulations, HMR? To minimize the risks to public health, safety, and the environment during transportation. These regulations are in place to ensure that dangerous goods are transported as safely as possible. Okay, what's next? When must placards be displayed on a commercial motor vehicle transporting hazardous materials? On all four sides of the vehicle when required by regulations for the quantity and type of material. Placards alert everyone to the presence of hazardous materials. Moving on. What does the term ORMD signify in hazardous materials transportation? A material that, when packaged in limited quantities, presents a limited hazard during transport. ORMD items have very low risk due to their small quantity and packaging. So what's next? What is a driver's primary responsibility concerning attendance during the loading and unloading of hazardous materials? The driver must be present and attentive to the vehicle unless specifically permitted otherwise by regulation. You must supervise the process to ensure safety and compliance. Next on our list, what essential information is always found on a shipping paper for hazardous materials? The proper shipping name, hazard class, identification number, and packing group. These four pieces of information are the minimum required for identification. Okay, what's after this? What is the main function of a safety data sheet, SDS? Formerly MSDS, it provides comprehensive information on the hazardous materials properties, hazards, and emergency handling. The SDS is a vital resource for understanding and handling hazardous materials safely. Let's move on. For what quantity of Division 1, 1, 1.2, or 1, three explosives are special parking rules applicable, any quantity that requires placarding. Due to their high hazard, explosives have strict parking regulations even in small quantities. What about this next one? What is the hazard class designation for flammable liquids? Class 3. Flammable liquids like gasoline fall under Class 3. On to the next question. When transporting any quantity of chlorine, what action must a driver take before crossing a railroad highway grade crossing? Stop the vehicle between 15 and 50 feet from the nearest rail. Chlorine is a highly hazardous material, requiring extra caution at railroad crossings. Moving forward, which of the following may result in disqualification from holding a hazmat endorsement? Conviction for certain felonies, such as conspiracy to commit terrorism. The TSA conducts a thorough background check, and certain serious crimes are disqualifying. Let's consider the next one. What is a subsidiary risk in hazardous materials transportation? A secondary hazard posed by a material in addition to its primary hazard class. Some materials have more than one dangerous property. And the next point. Is smoking permitted within 25 feet of a placarded cargo tank containing flammable liquids or gases? No, smoking is strictly forbidden in such areas. Open flames or sparks near flammables are extremely dangerous. What's next? What does the ERG, Emergency Response Guidebook, primarily provide? Initial guidance for emergency responders during a hazardous materials incident. The ERG is a crucial tool for quick action in a hazmat emergency. Moving on to this. If you discover a hazardous material leaking from your vehicle during transit, what is your immediate priority? Secure the area, ensure your safety, and promptly notify emergency services and your carrier. Your safety and containing the situation are immediate concerns. All right, let's see. What type of fire extinguisher is mandatory for a commercial motor vehicle transporting hazardous materials? One with a minimum rating of 10 BC. This rating indicates its effectiveness against flammable liquids and electrical fires. What's after this? What does the packing group on a hazardous materials shipping paper indicate? The relative degree of danger a hazardous material presents, e.g., PGI for high danger. Packing group 1 is for materials presenting high danger, while PG3 is for low danger. Next question. What is the minimum age to be eligible for a hazmat endorsement in Texas? 21 years of age. Federal regulations require you to be at least 21 to obtain a hazmat endorsement. Let's get to this one. What is your responsibility if your placarded hazardous materials vehicle is involved in an accident? Secure the scene, assess for leaks or spills, contact emergency services, and provide shipping papers if safe to do so. Always prioritize safety, containment, and communication. Okay, what's next? What does a dangerous placard indicate on a vehicle? The vehicle is carrying two or more hazardous materials requiring placards, but none are in bulk or a primary hazard class requiring a specific placard. It's a general placard for mixed loads below specific thresholds. Moving on. Which placards are always required for any quantity of Class 1, 1, 1.2, or 1.3 explosives? Explosives 1.1, explosives 1.2, or explosives 1.3 placards. These are specific and mandatory for explosives, regardless of quantity. So, what's next? What action must you take if you are transporting any amount of chlorine and its concentration in the air is detectable? Evacuate the area and use respiratory protection if equipped, as required by your safety plan. Chlorine gas is highly toxic and requires immediate protective action. Next on our list, how often must you inspect the tires on a vehicle placarded for hazardous materials? At the beginning of each trip and whenever the vehicle is parked for 3 hours or driven 150 miles. Frequent tire checks are crucial to prevent incidents with hazmat loads. Okay, what's after this? What does the term forbidden mean in the context of hazardous materials transportation? The material is prohibited from being transported by a specific mode of transportation. If something is forbidden, you absolutely cannot transport it. Let's move on. When can hazardous materials be legally transported in a tank vehicle that is not completely full? If the tank is baffled to control liquid surge or loaded to specific percentages for surge reduction. This helps prevent dangerous surging of liquids in partially full tanks. What about this next one? What documents are always required to be carried by a driver when transporting hazardous materials? Shipping papers, emergency response information, and your CDL with the hazmat endorsement. These documents provide critical information for authorities and emergency responders. On to the next question. What is the primary hazard associated with Class 2, 3, poison gas? The potential for inhalation toxicity, which can cause serious injury or death. Even small exposures to poison gas can be lethal. Moving forward. For how long must carriers retain shipping papers after a hazardous materials shipment has been delivered? For a period of 1 year from the date of acceptance. This retention period allows for record keeping and audits. Let's consider the next one. What is the main purpose of a segregation table in hazardous materials regulations? To specify which hazardous materials are incompatible and cannot be loaded together on the same vehicle. Incompatible materials can react dangerously if mixed. And the next point, what are placarding tables used for in hazardous materials transportation? They determine the specific placards required for various hazardous materials based on their hazard class and quantity. These tables guide you on which placards to display. What's next? What specific precaution is essential when refueling a vehicle carrying hazardous materials? Shut off the engine, set the parking brake, and prevent smoking or open flames within 25 feet. Refueling is a high-risk operation with hazardous materials present. Moving on to this, what special handling precaution is necessary when loading or unloading cylinders of compressed gas? Cylinders must be rolled with their caps on and secured upright to prevent movement. Proper handling prevents damage and leaks. All right, let's see. What does an X in the HM column of the hazardous materials table signify? That a hazardous materials shipping paper is required for that entry. The X is a quick indicator that shipping papers are a must. What's after this? What is the maximum quantity of hazardous material that can be transported in a passenger-carrying vehicle, e.g., a bus? Only very limited quantities for personal use, such as certain medical devices, are generally permitted. Passenger vehicles have severe restrictions on hazmat transport for obvious safety reasons. Next question. What is the critical pressure requirement for a portable tank containing hazardous materials during transport? Sufficient pressure must be maintained to prevent the tank from collapsing due to external pressure changes. Maintaining proper pressure ensures the integrity of the tank. Let's get to this one. If a hazardous material has a flash point below 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 degrees Celsius, what is its classification? Flammable liquid. This is the defining characteristic for a Class 3 flammable liquid. Okay, what's next? What is a reportable quantity RQ of a hazardous substance? The minimum amount of a hazardous substance that, if released, requires immediate notification to federal authorities. Any release at or above the RQ must be reported. Moving on. What is the key function of an emergency responder information contact on a hazardous materials shipping paper? It provides a 24-hour phone number for immediate access to hazardous materials emergency response information. This ensures emergency personnel can get crucial information quickly. So, what's next? When driving a placarded hazardous materials vehicle and you realize you are on an unauthorized route, what should you do? Safely pull over at the first opportunity and immediately find a legal route to correct your course. Getting off an unauthorized route promptly is crucial for compliance and safety. Next on our list, what is the primary hazard associated with Class 8 corrosive materials? Their ability to cause severe damage to living tissue or to corrode materials upon contact. Corrosives can literally eat away at substances, including skin and eyes. Okay, what's after this? Before commencing the transfer of hazardous materials from a cargo tank, what crucial step must be taken for safety? The cargo tank vehicle must be properly bonded and grounded to dissipate static electricity. This prevents sparks that could ignite flammable materials. Let's move on. How far must you keep your vehicle from the rear of another vehicle carrying Division 1, 1.2, or 1.3 explosives if it is stopped on the highway? At least 500 feet. A large buffer zone is required due to the extreme danger of explosives. What about this next one? What is the significance of a D-dot specification container for hazardous materials? It means the container has been manufactured and tested according to specific federal standards for safe transportation. These containers are designed to safely contain specific hazardous materials. On to the next question. What does a CDL with an H endorsement authorize a driver to do? To transport hazardous materials that are in quantities requiring a vehicle to be placarded. The H endorsement is your license to haul placarded hazmat. Moving forward, after delivering a hazardous waste shipment, for how long must the hazardous waste manifests be retained by the carrier? For a minimum of 3 years. Hazardous waste manifests have a longer retention period due to their strict tracking requirements. Let's consider the next one. What special procedure applies when transporting hazardous materials and crossing a drawbridge without a traffic signal or an attendant? You must stop your vehicle between 200 feet and 500 feet from the drawbridge. This precaution ensures safety if the bridge needs to open. And the next point, what is the main hazard associated with Class 6-1, poisonous toxic substances? They are substances that can cause serious illness or death if inhaled, swallowed, or absorbed through the skin. These materials are dangerous even in small amounts. What's next? What action is required if you find damaged or leaking packages of hazardous materials during a pre-trip inspection? Refuse to transport the load until the damaged package is removed or properly contained and notify your carrier. Never transport damaged or leaking hazmat packages. Moving on to this. What is the primary safety concern when transporting cryogenic liquids, e.g., liquid oxygen, liquid nitrogen? The extremely cold temperatures and the significant expansion ratio from liquid to gas, leading to high pressure. These liquids present hazards from both extreme cold and potential pressure buildup. All right, let's see. What is the purpose of the entry-level driver training ELDT requirement for the Hazmat endorsement? To ensure that new applicants for the H endorsement receive a comprehensive theoretical foundation in hazardous materials transportation. ELDT ensures drivers have a solid understanding of hazmat regulations and safety before taking the test. And that's our deep dive into the Texas Hazmat Endorsement Test questions. Keep studying these regulations and safety procedures, and you'll be well prepared. Safe driving, everyone.